No, to be working on a Chekhov, and that specific one. But it's amazing, you're always running into people, well, we were in that time, who said, oh yes, oh well, I mean, we've seen it so much. And we all said, where did you see it? You know, they hadn't seen it. And, but it was wonderful. It was a great experience, and a fabulous cast to work with.
At that time, did you want to do them all, like comedy, tragedy, everything, or were you trying to...
Sorry, you have to stop. We hear this
Oh yeah, what is
vacuum.
that? Vacuuming. Is it in the hall?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah.
It's going through.
It'll just be a few seconds, I guess. Who shot it?
Of Leah?
No,
Or of them? I think it's just a blown up snap.
Oh, excellent. I love black. All right. Yeah, would you say that you were trying to find yourself per se, or did you want to kind of learn it all?
Yes, I would say that. Try to learn everything. Try to do everything. Try to expand. And I think in a funny way, that's behind most of the decisions that I make as far as my work is concerned.
Did you read your reviews at that time?
Oh yes, I did. Some people didn't read theirs, but I did. Even when they were bad, it's always something you can learn, you know. Sometimes they were devastating. I must admit I paid far more attention to the ones that were bad than I did to the ones that raved about me. It's easy to get a swelled head in this business, and that doesn't do any good at all. It just stops you from growing. But, and I don't mean, I think that it's wrong probably to put too much emphasis on negative thinking. That can drag you right down and not contribute anything. But if there's a path, that's one of the advantages of Nathan Cohen as a critic, is he was extremely harsh. But he was saying, you know, these people are capable, anybody is capable of world-class standards. And if you don't give it to me, I will point that out, and I will say where you missed. And I know I did, after I did The Three Sisters, I did Ranievskaya in the Cherry Orchard. And, oh, God, I don't think I'd ever worked as hard as I did on that. And I fought to get the role for the first time. I never did that. And because that generally turned out bad luck, and it might have been this case too. But although some people said I was good, but Cohen said she doesn't know what she's doing. So after the production was over, I phoned him up and I said, "Oh, for God's sake, what do you mean? You know, what was that about? Tell me so I can, you know, deal on this." He's very, you know, he liked my work, he admired my work, and that made me feel confident. But he said, no, you're right off on the wrong track here. So then we argued, and then it turned out that he thought that Jane Mallett, who was a good 25 years older than me, would be the ideal person. And it's true. Ranievskaya is supposed to be 63, but, you know, got a lover in Paris. I mean, she's, you know. So that it's funny. In other words, he was saying that Chekhov was being funny about these people, not romantic, and my attack had been far more romantic about it. So, a left-wing point of view.
What was it about these plays, Brecht, Chekhov, that were so popular? Was it the time? Who was it?
Yes, I think so. I think people were, I don't think it's from the point of view, they're great playwrights. And I think it's that. It was the modern theatre. Williams was extraordinarily popular, and Miller too, you know. So, I mean, everybody in the Mother-in-Law was doing The Crucible and Streetcar and, you know, all of those things.
This was a time when great new works were coming in.
Yes, very stimulating period of time. But of course that's not true of the Chekhov or even of the Brecht, you know. They were all earlier. But
but they were social constructors.
Yeah, not so much. I never think of Chekhov as in that. I just think he's a great playwright about human beings. Incredible humanity in his work.
What was the community like here in Toronto? When was it the capital of Canadian theatre in the early 50s?
Well, we thought it was, but talk to someone from Montreal or Winnipeg or Vancouver. That's true of anything, I think, in this country.
Let me name a few other companies, actually. While the Crest and others were establishing themselves here in Ontario, you had, in Montreal, for example, the Théâtre du Nouveau Monde,
yes.
Louis Roux, etc.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, what was the name of that company before it was Théâtre du Nouveau Monde? Was it a company, or Théâtre Molière, or something like that?
Compagnon, something.
Yeah.
Compagnon. It was Father so-and-so, what was his name? Father something. It was at the Jésus they played?
Yeah.
Les Compagnons de Saint Laurent.
De Saint Laurent, right, okay. I saw them do Les Précieuses.
Can you start this over again and say you saw the Compagnons de Saint Laurent?
All right. I saw the Compagnons de Saint Laurent with do Les Précieuses, Molière, with Jean Gascon and Jean-Louis Roux, and maybe Denise Pelletier. I'm not sure about that part. But they were wonderful. And they were brought from Montreal by Dora Mavor-Moore, and Mavor, I guess, by the New Play Society. No, not the New Play Society. It was before that. But I'd gone to a girls' school, Bishop Strachan, and I had played Gascon's role in Les Précieuses. So I thought, they were wonderful, very, very exciting. And then, of course, they went on to do Théâtre Nouveau Monde.
This was clearly a confident movement, the French-Canadian Quebec. Was it almost a threat? Like, was it a level the English theatre had to rise to?
They were different. I mean, as they still are. They play in a different style, totally. I did a play of Michel Tremblay's Impromptu at Outremont, and it had been done by French company first, as they always are, and then we did a translation at the Tarragon, and Bill Glasgow directing and so on. And Tremblay came up to see it, and of course he thinks his own works are funny. He laughed all the way through it, but it was done in a totally different way because English people think different, behave differently, react differently, really, than the French. Who's that wonderful? God, I'm no good on names. Cut the thing. No. Well, I'll talk about him in a minute, if you like.
Yes.
No, an actress. Who would be? At any rate, it was the woman who played the same part I played in Outremont, and she hated the play because Fernand she played, and it is the villain of the piece. But I said, oh, it was wonderful. I loved it. It was funny. She's ghastly, but they had played it in a totally different style. I mean, they roared around, and they played front out. There was no interplay, on that level. It's less. I think they don't play with that Chekhovian Stanislavski influence, I don't think, or method influence. They're more bravura in their approach to things, it seems to me.
Did you say bravura?
Bravura, yeah.
Thank you.
But you asked about Gélin. He came through to the Royal Alec when I was still in college, I think, with Chikok, and that was, that was very lauded here. We liked, and then I did Bouzy et le Juste here on television with him. He's a nice man.
I heard a lot about that. There was a time when they tried to, well, this was later in Stratford mostly, but anyway, when they tried to kind of create a national Canadian theatre, often by having French-Canadian players speaking in English during an English play, and maybe English players doing French in French play, and this never really worked.
Oh, it worked. Certainly not for the French. Their language is so vital to them, and the precision of how it's done. As a matter of fact, that's what Outremont is all about. And I don't think that could ever work. I think if we could, if we had an opportunity to see them and see stuff in our own language and admire it on those, but they're different. They're different ways of doing it. It's like when you go to see Hamlet. I mean, how many Hamlets have you seen? They're all different, and it's the interpretation of the actor, of the time, of whatever, And French and English is different. The National Theatre, I think, has been the prime example of that.
Manitoba Theatre Centre. Did this affect you? Did anyone come out of there, or did news like of the Hirsch thing come to Toronto at all? Was this influence seen here?
I think from time to time, people who had worked there, well, Gordon being one, and eventually both Tom and John came here. And John directed Cat and Haunt Tin Roof at the Crest. And so we heard about the activities at that time a lot,
The Everyman Theatre?
I didn't hear terribly much about that until I guess I ran into, when I met Bruno and I met Ed McNamara. I think they both worked with that. But
the Totem Theatre, does that mean anything to you?
Yes, but that's fairly recent, isn't it?
I'm not sure about that. That was John threw that one in after the Everyman. Yeah. In '58, though, you went up to Stratford, and in this particular instance, you performed with Chris Plummer in Winter's Tale.
Yes, and Jason Robards in Henry IV Part One.
Now, clearly, it had been set up at Stratford and had been running for a few years.
Oh, it had been, yeah, running for 4 or 5 years.
So, what did it mean to you to go up there?
Well, I think I was extremely excited at that. I had talked to them when I was in England about it. And I guess also when I worked with Guthrie on Love and Libel, around then. But yes, I was very excited about going. And it was great. I enjoyed it.
How was it different from what you've been doing before?
Shakespeare. I didn't do much Shakespeare before. The theater, I thought, oh my God, over 2,000 people. I'm just going to be overwhelmed. I'd never played a theater as large as that. And because even the Alec is something like 1,500 or something. It's not over 2,000, which I think is 2,500 or something like that theater. But the amazing thing is it's really intimate. And I didn't get that until I actually walked on stage with the audience there. realize how intimate it was. And it was great working with both those men. And Langham directed the Henry IV, and Dougie Campbell directed the Winter's Tale.
Let's start with Doug Campbell. He was a great player, comic, kind of full, laughing, hearty role, right? As an actor. As a director, which he still is to this day, what did you think of him? Was he new to it?
He had a concept for Winter's Tale, which I thought was great. And Chris, who was cast as Leontes, had trouble with the interpretation and was very unhappy in the role. And he would hold the curtain up for 10, 15 minutes, almost every performance. And because he opened the production as devised by Dougie, they brought him in a sort of bacchanalian festival that would, show the beginnings of decadence in the court. And he didn't like that, and he didn't want to do it. So I remember one time, I went out when I was ready in my costume and walked the halls just to get, some life in my body before I walked downstairs. And the place was filled with the management. Langham was there, Campbell was there, all the business managers. It was astounding. I said, what on earth, what are you doing back here? And they said, through the thinnest slips possible, we're making sure the curtain goes up on time. And, well, it did. And he was furious. He was so angry, he could barely see straight. But he was brilliant. It was the best performance of the part he ever gave. Ever.
He was quite a man about town, Chris Plummer, at the time.
He was married at the time. And he was...
Yeah, please pause for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You were just telling me about quite a man about town is what I said Christopher Plummer was at the time. You're saying he was married.
Yes, he was married to Tammy Grimes at the time. And so he wasn't a man about town that particular season. I don't know that he was incredibly happy about everything. I think he had reached a point in his career where he wasn't exactly sure where he wanted to go, and he wanted to do a number of things. But I think there was frustration with him. He's an incredible talent. He had done the Hamlets and the Oedipus by that time, and the Leontes was basically the next step into moving towards Othello and things like that. But I think he went to England after that, and but he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy.
Could we have more on Michael Langham exactly? He was obviously trained himself by Guthrie and had learned under him. What did you find?
He was brought over by the Crest Theatre. You see, but they never give credit for any of those things. It's funny, isn't it? Yes, and he did, what did he do? Whole show he's forever doing. What the heck was that? Inspector General, was it?
Well, do you remember any of his mannerisms or anything like that? What did you recall about that?
Oh, before I went down to Stratford, I had heard that he was quite sort of, not high-handed, but he could criticize people and be demanding of people and so forth, and I thought, oh God, this is going something to be terrified of. And I went to rehearsal, and we were rehearsing on the stage, you know, at that point, not in any hall or anything. We were rehearsing on the actual stage, and scene was going on, and it was for Henry IV. And Jason hadn't arrived at that point. He came in that day. My scenes were with him, and but I was there waiting and just watching what they were doing, and getting a feel of everything. I knew most of the members of the company, but I'd never met him, and he was so gracious. I mean, he came flying down the stairs and greeted me, thanked me for coming. You know, I thought, well, I would have done anything for him, you know. And I wasn't frightened of him at all after that. And when I played Lady Percy, and it's a peculiar role because it's almost divided. There's a long speech as she enters, and it's very rather formal and so forth. And then she goes into a really intimate scene with Hotspur, and basically we rolled around on the floor because she bends back. She doesn't want him to go, and she tries to hold on to him, and we had the best time. But he had me coming down and being very formal throughout the scene. So I started and tried it, and I said, oh, I can't do it like this. Is silly, you know. Why would she be formal if she's bending back? As you know, so we tried it. He said, well, fine, do what you see. What do you want to do? He loved it. Let me do it.
So he was flexible. Did you work under Guthrie then up there?
Not there, no. I worked with him in Love and Libel.
Yeah, Davies.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. You started that. You went to Broadway with that, didn't you? Okay. So can you tell me the history of Love and Libel?
Well, I got a call first in the summer of '60, I guess, and that they would like me to do it, and to be cast as Kitty, I think, the woman's name was. And so that was fine. And then, at the end of the summer, I did an independent production which was shown at which used the facilities of the Crest Theatre. Norma Reno did a production of Epitaph for George Dillon. She produced it. And I was in that. And Guthrie came to see it. And he phoned me a day or two after that and said, may I come and see you? And I, fine, darn right. He said, I think I would like you to play Molly, I think her name is, which is a wonderful woman's role. And I said, oh, wonderful, that's what I really like to do. But I thought they were looking for a name, and they likely were. But it isn't a huge role. And so, yeah, that's how I met him. And Rob seemed to be satisfied that I could handle that.
Can you talk a little about Robertson Davies then? He had been writing for a few years, had already made a name for himself.
Yeah, and he had also been a friend of Guthrie's, though, from England, my memory of it. And he was with us throughout all the rehearsals. Oh, and they were so funny. I'd had, this sounds awful, I don't know whether you want to put this on a thing, but I'd had a lump in my breast, and I had to have that taken out right after Epitaph for George Dillon. I found just before, and it wasn't cancer, it was a benign growth, so that was fine. And but it took me a minute or two to recoup. And I remember Guthrie said everybody has to wear slacks for rehearsals. Well, for rehearsals and even for the show, because all the scenery was to be on rollers, and we would do it. We'd act, and then we'd push it aside on like moving screens and stuff. And some of the stuff would be on the floor, and so I remember being in. I never wore slacks before that, and I remember being there and looking out, and there was a sea of what do they call them? Not drip dry suits. You know, the 50s. What were they called? What?
Permanent press.
The permanent press. But you could print all black, all with the hat, black fedora, and it was Billy Rose's contingent, and part of the Theatre Guild. They were all there, watching it. That was funny. They looked identical. It was very funny to see that in motion, because we never had anything like that here. You know.
You were doing a Canadian play, though. Was that a significant thing to you?
I guess. No, well, we knew it was going to Broadway. You know, it was to play the Royal Alec, then it was to go to Detroit, which it did, and then Boston, and then into New York. It was part of the Theatre Guild that picked it up.
Can you tell me about Broadway, and how did your fellow players, the company, take to that experience?
Well, I think we thought we were all wonderful. I had thought at the time I'd stay there, because I thought Theatre Guild, there's a subscription. And I'd be there, and even if it was ghastly, they'd keep it going for at least 6 months. And they didn't. A snowstorm hit there, and the reviews were, it's all right, you know, but not, don't miss it. And everything shut down. I think on opening night, the storm had hit. So it took a week or two for the newspapers to get out and read, and of course by that time it was very old hat, but the television was, and radio reviews were what they had to go on, and so they gave the notice that they couldn't keep it up. Save the knees.
So we have the very important task of starting off with those little colored bars.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
I didn't figure out why. Why do you do that?
Why?
This is color accuracy.
When we go to edit a suite, when we want to edit it, we have to time the we're going to use TBC. The TBC is
time-based corrector.
Yeah, so we have to time the tapes before start editing. So color bars show us the actual color, the good color.
Oh.
So that's what we're doing.
I'm starting to fall asleep now.
Okay.
A bit like Bacall, you know. A bit like Bacall.
Bacall?
Yeah, so here, looking at you, you keep reminding me of Lauren Bacall.
Really?
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
And if that's not idle flattery, if it were, I'd have said it an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Anyway, where the devil were we? We're going now, right? We talked about Robert Davies, we talked about Michael Langham and your work with him. Tony Guthrie, yeah. Tony Guthrie, maybe we could just round that out a little more. Quite a little guy, a little short man, right?
Oh, he must have been 6'5" or something. 6. He was wonderful. He wasn't well during that. And Rob, I don't think, was happy at all with the production. He wasn't getting what he wanted. Dennis King had played the part of my husband, what was he, a newspaper man or an organist or something? I can't remember the part now, but a very funny part, and the free speaker in the play. And so but Dennis King was a star on Broadway at the time, and he wanted the part enlarged and the play defocused and directed towards his part. So that was an unhappy situation for Rob. He felt his play was being distorted.
Political sounding. I have very little information on your work in radio and TV during this period. So we did mention a little bit where you worked here out of Toronto Television, but did you do any radio work?
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me did you work with Andrew Allen? Or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, that's who you worked for, Andrew and Essa, and Alan Savage, who ran the Ford Theatre, which was that was like a bit sort of based on the Lux Radio Theatre, that kind of show. The Andrews were all Canadian things, wonderful place at the time.
Tell me about Andrew Allen then. What was it like working with him? A typical day, a typical rehearsal?
Oh, he was very formal. He never called you Charm, or didn't call me Charm. He'd say Miss King, and I would not be able to say Andrew. I could say it as soon as they stopped, you know, but we were Mr. Draney, Mr. Mr. Tweed, all these people. So very, very formal. But what he was saying with that was that we had to respect each other and our work. And he had this sort of Scottish view, I think, that if you were too familiar, it bred contempt. I don't know.
Did you do any of the schools broadcasts? The sort of educational plays?
Oh yes, I did some of those. Yes, they were fun, great fun, because that was sort of nutsy voice work. You know, well, that was fun.
You paid the rent too a lot of the time.
No, but it went towards it. No, none of it paid very well. I think to be a Canadian performer means that you were very close to the borderline in poverty.
Was there a theatre colony here in Toronto, a neighborhood where we might expect
well, at the time of radio and early television, yes. Right up the street here was the Celebrity Club, and you'd see everybody there. That was great.
Who would everybody be if you walked in on, say, a Friday evening?
Well, I don't know. There'd be the Drainies and Bud Knapp, and this is from thing, and there would be Ed McNamara and Paul Kligman, Kate Reed, Austin Willis, Barb Hamilton, the Davises to a certain extent, everybody, Lauren Green, whoever, because it was right across the road. So when you finished your work, you'd go over there.
Was the hierarchy subtle in a kind of Canadian way, or would you say that there was very much a knowledge of who was cutting it, who wasn't, who was at the top, who was on the way down? Was there that kind of a sense of politics?
Oh, I guess so. I never bothered with that sort of stuff much. But yes, I think there probably was.
In '55, I'm going to refer to an acclaimed television play, Summers Are Lucky.
Oh yeah, right.
By
yeah.
Hugh Garner. What are your memories of working in those sort of technically primitive days and getting out something that was so highly acclaimed and good?
That was a wonderful script. Wonderful script, because some of the other things were not well written. Some of the earlier Canadian things were, or they were cliche. That, part of it, I guess, was how I was working myself at that particular time, and each moment had to drop down to the next moment. There had to be a connection, like a string of pearls, and that you were able to do it with that. It was an extraordinarily brilliant piece to work like that with, and I enjoyed doing it very much.
Was it like playing for an audience, playing for the camera?
Well, there was no audience then for camera work. So, oh, you mean?
Yeah. play to the camera in those?
No, I've never been as comfortable. I'm always self-conscious in front of a camera.
Now there's another production, a Standard of Dying. A Q for Quest Television?
Oh, Q for Crest, that was a wonderful series.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
I did a couple of things for that. I did black comedy, I think. I played with Jack Klugman. And that was in two parts. I mean, we had there's two plays that go together, and we played one week and the other the next week. That was on sort of Sunday night. And I did a Saul Bellow thing. It was absolute heaven, because it was about a couple who were forced to leave a tenement. And the husband strongly objected to leaving. But we were to be paid something. I can't remember the full details. But in the end, what happened is we sacked the place and break it all up. And that was, so the last 5 minutes we were throwing pillows around shredded with all the feathers flying and breaking. It was a marvelous release for us. I don't know what it looked like on camera. It was before tape.
And there was some experimental camera work. They used the camera was the actor or something like that. Do you remember what that was like?
No.
Okay.
Was I in anything like that?
The camera sort of would move around, and you'd speak to the camera apparently in this one, and that would be the other character.
I don't remember that.
So that was.
There was what was that movie that Robert Montgomery played in, The Lady in the Lake or something like that? Subjective camera, yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's inspired by that, probably.
Hammett or something, whatever it was. You also performed for GM Theatre. GM Theatre would have been.
Oh yeah, that was the hour show. Yeah. They'd be different every week. I mean, that was anthology stuff.
Okay, you did Boussy and the Juste.
Yes, I suppose that came in under that. Didn't realize. Yeah.
Before you mentioned something about Eric House, but it was off camera. What were you saying about?
I said he was a great actor, and he is. He is a great actor.
Why?
He's a great comic. He was also very good in straight drama, as so many great comics are, but he has a unique persona, a unique view of things, so that, and impeccable timing, so that the two combined, and he hits you with it. When he was in the early days of Stratford as well, Guthrie saw it and he adored him, and he was unbelievable. Yeah.
Is there a sort of a shame here to the fact that Canadians don't know really who he is, per se?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's funny. I think we've made a tremendous mistake in being so we had to be modest. You can't be modest in this business. It's a dollars and cents business. The Americans have got it right down that you have to build a star system, and so the people know who they are. Then they'll come and see them again, good or bad. They will accept failure and success. An audience will, and there's proof of that. But it's as though the people that are celebrated here are producers and bureaucrats. When people, even the government, the Ontario government, in their folder to other countries to say, please come and make films here, because we have so much. We have wonderful scenery and we have wonderful crews. Not a mention of actors.
Was it always that way then?
Oh, it's worse. It was worse. It was worse then than it is now.
So
I mean, when I was a kid and said I'm going to be an actor, everyone thought, oh, well, that means you have to go to New York. Or London. Yeah. Or Hollywood, you know.
Were there moments when you thought this might all change?
I think I rather hoped it would. And in fact, it has changed. I mean, I think young kids coming up today, they know that they can work here. There are enough theaters. There's a lot of film work being done. May not necessarily be started here, but American productions are coming in here. There is work. There's tremendous growth. I mean, when I started, I don't know how many people were in the actor union. I think my number is something like 473. Well, you know, there are 10,000 people who are members at the moment, and probably more than that now, you know. But
Very impressive. Wonderful. Can we pause, please, for a moment?
Sure.
When was that you married for?
I married him in 1962,
Okay.
and I was doing what's that Williams thing, Orpheus Descending. I was doing that at the Crest at the time, and but then after that, I did, you know, a number of things. But Leah was born in '64, and once she was born, I really wasn't honestly very interested in working. It was such fun, seriously, looking after her. It was a new youth, if you like. And and then we went to California, and really, at that point, to break in, for me, I was too old to break into Hollywood for the kind of work that I would like to do. I'm not interested in, you know, sitting and being a little secretary or something, you know. Mr. So-and-so will see you today is not the kind of work that I would enjoy. But, so I didn't work. I was off for 10 years. And it was, in that period of time, the from about 65 to 75.
Canadian stage? What was your involvement there?
Oh, I just worked there from time to time as an actress. Never had any other influential thing, just as an actress. But that was after that.
Donald Sutherland didn't do much Canadian stage before he took off, I think, for training in written and then a movie career. But did you ever cross paths while he was a stage actor in Canada?
No, I didn't. I met him when Gordon was planning to go down, and I went down to L.A. with him to see what it was like. So I wasn't terribly keen on going into Reagan territory, Nixon territory, which is what California was at the time. But, and I met him at the time, and Shirley. They were still married at that point, Shirley Douglas. And I don't think she has any memory of that, but you're not on camera, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Is this on camera?
Yes, shall I not be rolling this?
No, cut this.
Okay. All right, so cut. You can cut.
Yeah.
But for Kate Reid obviously can't speak for herself, so we've been asking just about everybody about her. Do you have any anecdotal memory, an anecdote, a story about her, or just something?
Oh, Katie was one of the great talents, absolutely great talents. And she came out of the Gill thing too, and she was in the second year of the Straw Hat Players, and which is when, I don't know, I think I saw her before because she was at the conservatory when I was at the university, and they'd had some play on, and I went to see it, and she was quite extraordinary there. And then I worked with her a lot at the Crest. She was in the Three Sisters. She played Irena, and in fact, I feel that I've never seen an Irena to touch her. And then we worked at Vineland together, and we did a lot. I mean, I knew her all our professional lives until she died. And then just before she died, we did Arsenic and Old Lace together. And that was sad. Are you on camera? Yeah, well, it was sad. She had, she wasn't well. That was very sad. But it didn't matter. She was lots of fun. You know?
Any adjectives you can put to her?
She's a purely instinctive actress. And she's, all characters just came directly from inside her. There would be she would likely not be putting on any accents or even any incredible interpretation as far as anything different from herself. Does that make any sense to you? So she was wonderful to work with. She was very direct and always played with you. She's one of the best people that I've ever had to play with, because she played with you. She'd play off what you did, and you'd play off what she did, and it was just quite spectacular. She had a vulnerability in her work that moved you to tears.
Okay, pause please. I've really covered all my